better when the mics get wet. Blow up mindset, no regrets. Welcome to the Natasha Effect.
I mean, I even catch myself doing it with my son. Like he'll do something and I'll be like, "Oh, he's just, he's just two," or he's just like I don't make him take accountability. We're getting better at it now. Like, go apologize, go do this, you can't do that, instead of just making excuses for him. But I think that so much starting from childhood, we all do that. And then you just kind
Yeah,
of that becomes the normal because you always have someone, a boss, a leader, someone in charge of you to fall back on. So you're never really your own leader, and then you're never really accountable for yourself.
yeah.
So
It's been
that's
able to
definitely
explain, isn't it? Because I think you're right, even as a parent. I always say, and I suppose I'm using an analogy now of like if something was going on in the home. Children will tell me all the time, I know something's going on, but my parents say it's fine. And I suppose I'll say to them, no one's asking you to tell the details. It's not. But I think, it's also letting children or, letting them be aware that actually things might not be great right now, but we still love you.
yeah.
It's making it quite clear that, I'm not going to pretend nothing's going on because I can see it is. So I'm going to actually respect, even at a young age, like you're noticing something. I don't need to, go into the actual detail or the minute detail because the reality is you're not going to understand that because it's too complex. But at a basic level, you can understand when something doesn't feel right. And
Yeah,
that you can
children are very
recognize.
receptive. And
Yeah,
a lot more than we realize.
yeah. And that's how
Especially
you start
even
it. Yeah.
yeah, even right now I see it with my son. Like I said, he's 2, almost 3, and he's at that age where he repeats everything I say and do. And so sometimes I really have to watch myself around him because he'll pick it up. And I mean, like you said, he doesn't know what it means or he doesn't necessarily know what certain things are, but it's still the fact like I know what they are, so I should stop that or I should in some
Or
way
be
be
prepared
mindful of
to
that.
explain it, if
Yeah.
if you feel, and it's that, isn't it? It's actually like, because it's like, we all make mistakes and we grow from them, but if you can explain to somebody what's going on, or, I suppose be congruent about your feelings, or, this upset me because of this. And there's always ways we can change our wording, for a different audience. And that's
Mhm.
something everyone can take accountability for rather than going, oh, I wouldn't bother saying to that person because they wouldn't understand. Well, they might do if you find a different way to phrase it.
Yeah, for me,
And
it's
then actually,
very, especially with my son, like he's my first. So if something went, I'm very like neat free perfectionist. Like I need everything a certain way, and kids aren't like that, obviously.
yeah.
And so this was about a year ago, like when he was before he turned 1, he would make a mess. It's not like I had to realize and remind myself, he's not just sitting there dumping the juice on the floor on purpose. He's not making a mess on purpose. But our instinct is to just get upset and to yell and to just be mad. And it's like, okay, if I just yell at him for no reason, and don't explain why I'm upset or why you can't do that, he's not going to know. He's just going to think I'm mad and angry because kids, probably much like animals, horses specifically, they read the body language, they read your energy, they're going to read into that. So all he sees is just I went from 0 to 10 and he doesn't know why.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I've had to really be conscious of like he's just a kid. Kids are supposed to make messes. It is what
Yeah.
it is. And just
Well,
tell him
it's when they learn, isn't it? It's
and then
like
I teach him
different
how to clean it up
textures and, yeah, like different textures and sensations and feelings. And what does this feel like if a drop like that? And they're the conversations you can have. I mean, and the reality is, yeah, you probably do have to clean it up after. But I mean, for you as well, your
yeah.
background to being in the army, there's an unconscious bias that pops in there because you'll not be allowed to do that at all in your
Mhm.
actual professional career because that just wouldn't be acceptable, within
Right.
the profession that you're in. So it is recognizing our unconscious biases as well. And the same with my ADHD, I have to recognize sometimes, I mean, I'm medicated, but days when I'm not, I have to recognize sometimes that, I mean, I annoy myself sometimes. I think, God, I must piss people off. I have to take myself for a
You
walk. I
sound
think
like my
sometimes,
husband. He's
oh,
he's like, "I
it's
annoy myself,
mental.
but it's
Sometimes
whatever."
I'll have to do different accents because I'll be talking to myself and people are like, who are you talking to? I'm like myself, but I'm pissing myself off. So I've got to start, making it fun to talk to myself. So I think, God, I can't shut up now. I'm off home once. So no, I mean, I as an adult, but like you're not put in a journey, I didn't grow up in an atmosphere where coaching was available to me, or that was there, because when you're in care and things are happening, you're kind of forgotten about. And I've been really lucky through my journey and intuitively connecting with people that actually have allowed me to express my feelings, be able to give explanations when it might not potentially have been a great interaction, but I've been given grace for that interaction and been able to have a
Yeah.
conversation. I just don't think we do that with people enough. I say that a lot of time, give people grace.
I was
You
just
don't know
gonna
what's going
say
on for
that, yeah.
them. Yeah.
And that's something I would say I learned obviously as I got older, but I think having kids really really teaches you have to. Like there's really no other way to operate unless you want to just be angry all the time.
And you can also, it also brings out your kiddie part as well, because part of, being in the army, I would assume that you don't get to kind of interact, like act in that way. But
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I love being with the kids. They keep me young. I have children of
That's
my
true,
own.
very true.
But I get to do
They're
things
very
I wouldn't do, like,
imaginative, very
you know,
they just there's no they don't
there's no
think too much about
limitations.
anything.
You know
They
what I
just
mean?
do it.
That's what it is.
They're
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah, I want to fly a spaceship. Awesome, let's go and explore that idea. I wish I'd thought of that when I was, I want to fly, or I want to roll around in that muddy puddle. Well, yeah, I will. Do you know what I'll have to do is put my clothes in the wash? But
Yeah,
they give you opportunities to exhibit childlike behavior, which innately is in us no matter what, whether it's through
mhm,
humor or words. We do it. We just maybe don't do it as actively as a child because we think, oh God, we can't behave like that. But we all have an inner child.
for sure. And I think sometimes it's good to explore excuse me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to explore that and not completely suppress it. I mean, there's a time and a place, of course, but I mean, yeah, definitely something to think about. You said something else I really respect too, and this is back to the beginning when you were talking about building the whole thing with the landfill and all
Mm.
that. So you talked about building something meaningful when it doesn't necessarily fit traditional systems and how that is actually really hard. And I think that a lot of people they kind of feel that or they're trying to do that or they're experiencing that. They just don't really say it or talk about it. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit and kind of talk about what does that really look like behind the scenes for you? Like what are people not seeing that you're dealing with or on that aspect of things?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much to it. So I think I'm going to break this down to make it easier. So there's so much. So if I break it into headings, so, I remember getting the money for this site. I'm going to use finance as a start.
Yeah, go
And,
ahead.
you know, money is given to grassroots organizations with the level of understanding that, I wasn't a business person, I wasn't an accountant, I had to learn. So when I set up a CIC, I had to learn how to write my own articles of association. I had to learn how to set up a company. I had to learn how to write a stakeholder map. I had to
Wouldn't it
write a
have been so
business
much
plan.
easier with a community?
Exactly. I mean, I was lucky. I joined lots of accelerator programs, so I did that purposely. But I had to go and find them. I had to go and go,
Yeah.
"Okay, God, what do I do to do this?" So I was on lots of different programs, and we had cohorts, and they're all great, but there's still a lot of legwork that before you can even set up these things. And I remember when we were struggling last year, and it's not easy to keep a riding school going. Like we've had to diversify because the reality is we can't make enough money of what we do with horses. People won't pay, and costs are just so high now and just getting higher that every winter sometimes I think, well, we keep our doors open. And I know in the UK last year, 282 riding school establishments did shut down. So I remember we were in a little bit of crisis, and there was a party cross-party business group at Scottish Parliament, and I thought I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to go to them with some real sort of answers, or some real questions and some solutions. And so one of them was, when you take on a build, no one tells you you've got to be VAT registered. You learn that as you go, and then no one tells you you can't deregister for VAT, so you learn that as you go. And no one
Mhm.
knows about VAT, by the way. So you also learn that as you go because accountants don't know about VAT. So you have to find a specialist VAT accountant, and that's thousands and thousands of pounds. Then on top of that, nobody tells you how to leave your business because that's not part of the exit strategy when people are giving you money. They'll want to give you a leadership coach, which is great, but no one gives you a financial accountant. And I think there should be a caveat with loans that you're giving a finance person. I want someone to sit in my board meetings and say, why are you not making that money you said you were going to make? And it's a huge problem across the board for community groups, financial administration, trying to find people to sit on boards that have that level of understanding. So between running payroll, having to understand zero, having to understand how to reconcile, having to understand how to write spreadsheets for grants that are project specific, having to understand what restricted income to unrestricted income is. That's just one part of the finance. But then what goes with that is, we have business support, but we're rural. And I remember saying, I'm paying all this taxpayers' money, we have all these enterprises. But actually, if I want to get a meeting with someone, I've got to travel 60 miles into Edinburgh and I've got to wait 4 weeks for an appointment. Wouldn't it be better, doing something like rural crisis cars? So I went in with these sort of suggestions. And actually, a lady that was there was actually a lady that I worked with called Joanna Slater from a company called Inspiring Alba, who actually is on a mission to make bookkeeping and accountancy more accessible, more available, because there's so many businesses in crisis and a lot of it is cash flow. And she heard me speak and she offered me help. And they've been working with me now for the last 2 years to diversify revenue, help me rewrite my business plans, understand what a RAG report is, understand what's governance reporting is, understand what I do to Oscar, understand what I do to Companies House, understand what I do for payroll, understand how I take off contributions. So that's just finance, and that's just every day. And then on
I
top of
don't
that,
even
you
want
have,
to imagine how many different
yeah,
aspects you have to handle, because even just running like my small business and whatever, like speaking with my accountant gives me migraines, like and
and
I
we
mean,
pay a lot.
obviously we're not dealing
Yeah.
with
Well,
um
we
I
have,
guess on the scale of what you
yeah,
have, like, so even
um,
trying to, like you said, you have to learn all of those things yourself or go seek it out, and it's the same thing with
or
any
have a load of
business.
money to do it, which isn't viable,
Not for
our
everyone, no.
level. It's not a viable thing. Like we have an accountancy system, a charity accountant, a bookkeeper, payroll, and VAT. But then on top of that, you have all the new rules with, health and safety and HR. So we have to join a membership body, or if not, I've got to write 70 policies, which I have done. But now I have to streamline them to make them easier, and they have to be an easy read format, and they have to match up with different localities because I run across 4 different localities across Scotland and England. So every policy is slightly different for things like child
Yeah.
protection. And then you have all the marketing. So that's how you schedule your Facebook, your TikTok, your Instagram. What scheduler do you use? How do you send out a newsletter? What do you put into the website? Talking to the website people. And then the 5 different emails people that can contact me with. Then the 10 staff, then the 20 horses, then the 35 volunteers. So there's not enough of me. I'm at the point now where there's people on the ground and I can leave the yard and I can do more networking. But there's also that. I mean, we're trying to push the leadership service. We recognise every time we've held an event, there's been a change for people. But that needs to talk to a different audience. That needs my time. I need to not be here, but I need to also be here because that needs the continuity because of the level that I am. So it's a constant balancing act of trying to speak to the right clientele. Because every time you try and do something different, your client group changes. And that comes with a whole load of SEO metrics. What way are you going to contact them? Blah, 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 blah. And you never stop. I mean, I say I probably get one full day off a month, and that's it.
Yeah, you have to
And
really
that's,
be all in and want to do what you're doing, like you said. So it helps that you care about it a lot. It definitely
I'm not
helps get you
massively
through the
sure.
hard
Well,
days.
I'm not massively sure how employable I am sometimes. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think now I could only go into a role. I mean, I just know that I couldn't do something someone told me to do just because I was to do it. Because
Yeah.
I would just say, well, that's stupid. I just don't get that, which probably doesn't make me that employable. So I understand that would piss people off. So I'm not sitting there saying I'm employee of the year. I'm saying I'd probably be a pain in the arse. I can't.
Yeah.
So I may as well do something good every day if that's what
I
I'm going
think
to
that's
bring to
what
this
makes a
world.
lot of entrepreneurs, though. Entrepreneurs is we realize we can't work for somebody else. Like, I do enough of that in the military, working for
Yeah.
somebody else. So
Yeah.
in my regular everyday life, I'm going to work for me. I'm going to
Yeah.
do what I
Yeah.
want to do. I want to do the good I want to do, and I want to work on the mission that I want to do and
Yeah.
not work for somebody else. So I think that
Yeah.
that's an important part of it too, is just you have to like care in order to
Yeah.
jump through all these hoops and everything that
Yeah.
you are going through. So yeah, definitely a lot. And like you said, it's things that people wish you told you wish you got told before you started a business, right? Like all these things you wish you knew that you just have to learn as you go. And that really is what it is.
And when you're the boss, like, no one, people might ask how you are, but on a surface level, you're responsible for everyone else. If something goes wrong in someone else's life, you have to take the crap
Yeah.
that they give you for it. You don't get to make excuses for your behavior. It doesn't matter if I've not slept for 5 days and something awful's happened to me. I still have to get up every day, and I've not been the best person every day, and I know that. But sometimes I feel as a boss, I'm not allowed to be anything else but this kind of carbon copy image of what does everyone else need, and
Yeah,
that's exhausting.
that's one of the main reasons that I started. So here I started a community or a network of women entrepreneurs, and it's a
Mhm.
networking community for just women business owners like you and myself. And I did that, one of the reasons is because around those people you can voice those issues you have, the problems you
Yeah,
have, like, because other people are probably having similar issues, maybe not same topic but similar issues
yeah,
that you can't talk about with your employees or people you're around every single day, because like you said, you have to be this idea of a leader, of a boss, of what people expect you to be. And then but when you're around other people that are going through it, it's okay to let your guard down and talk about those things. So that was one of the um, key factors of pushing my group, and the foundation and pillars that we talk about is just relationships and kind of talking about the things that you don't necessarily get to talk about on your everyday life with other people. So that was definitely a
yeah.
push behind that for me too, because you're right, you're not, so you're supposed to be seen as, I don't want to say perfect, but the perfect or ideal leader.
Well, you just have to get on with it, don't you? If someone doesn't turn up each day, it wouldn't matter if my leg was falling off. If everyone decided to not come in, I'd have to find some way of attaching a bit of wood to myself and dragging myself here. And
Yeah.
another thing that's I've found hard, and it's something over the years. I've done a lot of work with people who have really challenging circumstances, and I remember a lot of the good things I do. But when something goes wrong, people who you've helped that are challenged people will always remember the one bad thing. They will never remember the years that you've got up in the middle of the night, put yourself out there outside of your own job, which I have done far too much of, and I don't now because it was ridiculous the amount I was trying to help people, and I've recognised my boundaries. But that took a long time. So at the start, you want to help everyone, but people will always remember the shitty thing. And I just say to people,
Yeah.
if someone feels like that, then it's a shame that they're not at a point in their life where they're healing, because it's not a good place to be in. I remember lots of shitty things that have been done to me, but I also remember those opportunities that were given to me, and now I can sit back and go, something else is going on for that person. This wasn't a campaign or something that I'm going to hold on to, but that's been hard for me. I think there's been a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but there's been times where I would say judgments have been made not based on the actual longevity of a relationship. And I see that a lot with businesses as well. I see people write comments about businesses, and I think to people actually step back and think you're not really affecting the business, you're actually affecting the people that are part of it. So actually,
Yeah.
when you make a judgment and you want to share it, you're actually not, you're damaging everyone that's involved in that. And I just think it's a shame that we do that as humans. And it's something I actively try not to do. If I've had a disappointing time or something's happened, because I recognise that some days service might not be great. Some days something might just have went on. That's it. It's that simple. But I always try and be constructive in my feedback as to what could be changed rather than an attack. But we naturally attack.
Yeah. I always think about it in terms of like when you get grades in school, if you could get 9 100s, but the one day you get a 0, it
Yeah.
drags your grade down so much.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
because, and that's the same thing with behavior. People are always going to remember, because that's how we are. We remember how, we don't remember products, we don't remember sales, we don't remember that. We remember experiences and how someone makes us feel. That's why that kind of leader is important, because it's how they make you feel. Do they make you feel safe? How's their presence? How is their energy?
Yeah.
And if you feel really shitty around somebody, which is what we usually will call a bad leader or a terrible boss or what have you, that's how people are going to remember you. Even if on 9 out of 10 days you're great, that one day is going to set the tone for how they remember you forever.
Yeah.
And
And
it
that's
is,
hard. I've had to learn to take that
it is.
on the chin because I've had to think, God, but there's no point in, but that's something that you're also putting, that's something people just don't see behind the scenes at all. And there have been sleepless nights and challenges, but like you say, it's par for the course until we create a society of, more understanding and more grace and actually communication methodologies that allow us to kind of explore, why the situation might have happened or what was going on for a person that day, rather than it
Mhm.
being based on performance.
I think that's why, and I think you might have touched on it in your questionnaire a little bit. Like nervous system regulation is key for a lot, especially bosses or people who are in charge, because a lot of the time we are so dysregulated. Um, Especially like you said, not sleeping for 5 days and doing all of these things. So you have to do those non-negotiables for you. I always, one of my like biggest phrases I say is self-care isn't selfish, because I think a lot of people used to feel that way, like especially
Yeah,
moms didn't want to take care, or bosses didn't want to take care of themselves because it felt like selfish stepping away from the
yeah.
herd or the group or the community. But if you don't take care of you, nobody else is. And so I guess I'll ask you, why is regulation so important for you when it comes to like leadership or decision making?
So I suppose one of the biggest things that I always sort of say to myself is, it's taken me a long time to feel safe. People say to you, oh, you'll be really safe doing that thing. And I think, well, actually I need to feel it myself.
Yeah,
I need to understand that psychological safety. I need to feel it inside of me. So something I always say to myself about and I know horses really help me regulate. So it's a huge thing for me. I mean, the reality is it's not practical to have a horse everywhere, is it? I mean, if I could have it beside me all the time, then I
not
probably would
these
never be
days. No.
yeah. Yeah, I'd probably never dysregulate because they would show me how my behavior is and I'd remove myself from that. But
Hmm.
I always say, when leaders override sort of stress signals in people, so performance, it temporary continues, but trust is not. And that's to myself as well. You know, when I kind of don't listen to what's going on around me, I think, yeah, I might be able to maintain it, but actually I can't trust myself to continue it. I
That's a
think,
good way to put it. Yeah.
yeah. And I think, for me, if you think about like, so the polyvagal theory, is something we use quite a lot as neuroscientist Stephen Porges. When a mammal perceives a threat, even a subtle threat, the body shifts into social engagement mode. So connection becomes secondary to survival, and performance narrows and cooperation drops. So for me, it's I have to recognize that my nervous system's under strain because I know that I'm then not able to engage on a social level, which means professionally I probably will not be at my best. I'm not able to have conversations where I'm paying attention or being kind. And then actually, like we're saying, connection becomes secondary, so that I lose that kind of trust or that wanting to share, parts of myself or leadership or listen to others. So it's important for me to understand when my system is under stress because this is the reality of what happens, not just for me, but for everyone else. And I think, I recognize that I perform best when I feel safe to take interpersonal risks. I always think to myself, like, safety is not a softies, it's the
Yeah.
biological foundation of collaboration. And actually, I'm protecting myself when I'm recognizing what I do need to, when I know what I need to be safe, and whether that's I need to eat something, or I haven't drunk enough water, or these can be really, really fundamental things, kind of like really basic things. I've had enough sleep. Am I warm enough?
Yeah, I
You know, yeah,
noticed like I'm 25 weeks pregnant now. And so I noticed like I pay extra attention to those things that when I wasn't, I didn't. So, for example, I got up extra early before prepping for this podcast to make sure I had breakfast before I did this, to make sure like I took care of myself. On a normal day, that's something I would miss a lot, which I mean, it wasn't on purpose. It was just I'm busy. But I now like I literally force myself to go eat, to go take care of myself, to go to bed early. Um, and I think it comes down to okay, now I'm not just responsible for myself, I'm responsible for the person that I'm growing, but also the rest of my family. So I
yeah,
think that can be used in that aspect as well, in terms
yeah.
of like community, business, animals, herds, all of it. It's all interconnected. But
You
yeah,
know, like confronting uncomfortable truths. You know, for me, it helps me understand, what responsibility I carry, and then it helps me understand at what cost am I going to carry that.
it's a good way
And
to
I
put
always
it
say to
too.
my, yeah.
She's full of wisdom over here.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so quick shift, just before we wrap up here. I wanted to just kind of these are like the more fun questions I'd say where we get to hear your honest opinion. So don't think too much about it, just say whatever first comes to mind. So what is one truth about leadership that most people don't want to hear that we hadn't touched on yet?
So actually, for me, it's really, really simple. I think when I think about this, it's harder than control. I think sharing leadership is harder than controlling. I think people don't want to admit that.
Yeah, it's a fair point. All right, the next one. I think you probably have a few of these from talking to you, but what is the one moment where you almost gave up but didn't?
Thank God. I probably think I just, but it's so difficult, isn't it? I think probably when I set up Eat Sleep Ride, I'd done all this training to do it. And I was brought up in a homeless hostel. Well, I started in a homeless hostel. I mean, I went and did all my training. I came back from England and I had this great idea. And I got with a gentleman, and I ended up back in a homeless hostel again at the age of 30. And I thought, God, I never thought I'd be here. And I thought, is this just part of me? Do I just keep reenacting these patterns or ending up in these shitty situations, that you can't get out of? And I remember sitting in the hostel, there were like lines of people lining up because people taking drugs, and I'm sitting in my little room with just a bag, going, for fuck's sake, I've done all of this, and I'm back here because of back in a situation that I'd removed myself from. Because actually, by that point, I'm not going to be in a situation with, in this type of relationship, with this type of behavior.
Mm.
I think I became more acutely aware of my worth. But that was a really dark time for me. Again,
She's like, I've had a lot of moments, but we're
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking of the ones that I just made took me back to sitting there. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that that's key though, is you became aware of
yeah,
what you're worth and what you can do and what you wanted to do.
yeah,
And I think that that is the thing a lot of people miss is the understanding aspect of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Um, and then I wanted to you mentioned this idea, the quote, the darkness isn't something to fear, it's something to understand. And I think you kind of touched on that a little bit with that story, but what does that mean to you or for you right now? Like
you
going
can't
through.
live a life, if your coin's only half full. So when someone says to me, I want to be happy, well, that's great. But what does that mean? just saying a word to me. You had to understand the outputs that create the outcome. And actually, there might be days where I can maybe be challenging or I'm angry. Now I'm able to go, okay, I'm going to step into that darkness and I'm going to learn from it because I'm not going to have a facade that I don't want to be angry because I'm never going to grow. There's no light without dark. There's no joy without sorrow. You only live half a coin if you only ever try and be one half of it. And for me, every time I'm in my darkness now, I go, what is that? Jealousy is a good thing I say to people. I think to myself, am I jealous because I'm not happy with the way I look? Is there something I've not achieved in my life? Because it
Mhm.
always comes back to us, dark thoughts.
They say like the things you I don't want to say hate, but I guess we'll say like dislike or are jealous of in other people are usually things that, like you just said, you wish
Yeah,
you had or that you wanted to do or you want to accomplish. So I think the more that people realize why they're jealous or why they feel a certain way,
yeah.
they'll be able to identify
Ex-
that in themselves and take self accountability for
yeah.
yourself.
Explore your darkness. Don't run away from it. It's part of you. It's part
Yeah.
of our coin, isn't it?
Hmm. You can't, like you said, you can't just be one half. You have to
No.
embrace it all.
Yeah.
But I have enjoyed this conversation with you, Danielle, because it honestly it challenges something that I think a lot of people don't question enough. I think we've touched on that a lot. How disconnected we've really become from just pure natural instinct, from being present, from true, real leadership. And so I want to thank you so much for coming to the Natasha Effect all the way from Scotland. And for
Yay.
everyone who is listening, if this episode made you think a little bit differently, shift your perspective, or kind of see something that you hadn't before, I know I'd never heard of this kind of business, horse therapy, herd dynamics. I guess I've thought about it or heard of it in passing, but never really figured to apply it to human beings. So it
Yeah.
was very interesting for me. Make sure you follow along with the podcast, share with someone who you think needs to hear it, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is changing
Yeah.
perspectives one conversation at a time. So
Yeah.
again, thank you, Danielle, for being here, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you for embodying the principles of shared leadership and agreement. I've really enjoyed today. I'm going to have to
Yeah,
go
of
back to
course.
my horses now in windy old Scotland. The weather has turned, so I'm away.
Natasha Effect, yeah, the vibe is set. Truth gets louder when the mics get wet. Glow up mindset, no regrets. Welcome to the Natasha Effect.